Hi. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mary Marino, and today is Friday, June 12th. Welcome to my Friday morning show. Today, we are going to be talking about complacency. But before we get started, for those of you who don't know me, I am an accredited life coach and transformation expert. I support courageous women who are ready to rediscover who they really are. Women who are feeling stuck and kind of lost in transition, who after working with me are ready to create their new beginning. To get you started, I wrote an ebook, How to Manage Change and Navigate Transitions in Life, the 5 Essentials to Finding the New You. It's free, and you can find it right there on the homepage of my website, marymarinocoaching.com. And you can download it when you enter your email and become part of my email community. And I also have a ton of educational videos on my website too, so check them out. They're on the resource tab. This is episode number 31, Wisdom versus Complacency. So this week in my email community, I shared a story about an incident that happened to a friend of mine while she was waiting in line for coffee with her kids. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the guy ahead of her in line started to speak to her disrespectfully. And being that she was with her kids, she remained calm on the outside, but inside she was seething and struggling to contain her anger. Yeah, I've been there. I think we all have. So taking the high road, she walked away. And afterwards, she questioned herself if it was the right thing to do. She thought, what lesson was she teaching her children in that moment? Was it just showing them that it was acceptable to be treated disrespectfully? Would it have been better to engage this guy and tell him where to go? So here it was a couple of weeks later, and she was still quite upset with how she had responded and ruminating about all the things she should have said. And she wondered if taking the high road was the right thing to do at all. And if it was, then why didn't she feel good about it? The high road seemed more like a detour away from the situation. Taking the high road is kind of like it is our ego talking to us, not kind of, it is. Because it's telling us we are the better person. After all, the highness of our road is only relative when compared to someone else's. And our ego loves this feeling of being better. And that wasn't quite the message she wanted to teach her children. So conversely, when we connect to our wisdom, we know what is best for us. And in that moment, my friend was actually listening to her wisdom. And that told her to walk away and keep calm. Had the circumstances been different, perhaps her wisdom would have advised otherwise. But in that moment, she did what she knew to be the right thing. So I wanted to continue my discussion from last week, particularly after I heard this story. Last week I presented the 7 levels of energy or perspective. And don't worry if you missed it, because you can watch the recording right here on my business page under the live tab, or on my website, of course. But wisdom and complacency both live at level 3. And level 3, if you recall, is also called the rationalizer. So of all the 7 levels of energy that I discussed last week, I chose to focus on this one, not only because of my friend and what happened to her. It's because I find that many women and many of the clients I work with have a lot of level 3 energy. So what does this mean exactly? Well, as I said before, the level is called the rationalizer. And when you're rationalizing, you interpret situations and other people's actions in a way that makes you feel better about yourself and others. It's a way to cope with stress. And it's a way to tolerate and cooperate. If you can't beat them, join them, right? And sometimes this can be a good thing because there's a lot of things that we cannot change in this world and in our lives that we must accept. And we'll get to that later. So now that I've explained a little bit about this level of energy, people with a good amount of level 3 energy do a lot of rationalizing and tolerating, and perhaps even tolerating situations that are less than. So, on the surface, they tell themselves there are good reasons why they tolerate less than. But the real reason behind it all is fear. Fear of not being loved, fear of not being accepted, fear of being alone, fear of being judged, fear of embarrassment. And if it's a work situation, maybe there's a fear of being fired or not being promoted, fear of looking unprofessional. The list goes on and on. We tell ourselves in those situations, oh, I'm fine. It's fine. Or, you know what, it's good enough. And so people with a lot of level 3 energy live a fine life or a good enough life. So it only makes sense that if you're living from this perspective, you are nowhere near living at your highest potential. So in my work as a life coach, I have found that many women have high levels of energy, high levels of level 3 energy. They have high levels of energy too, but level 3 in particular. And why? Because in our culture, women are raised to be nurturers, putting everyone's needs above their own. And often women feel like it is selfish to want more for themselves. So they don't ask for what they need or even what they want. They become complacent with the status quo because it's easier and they just don't want to rock the boat. So rationalization is certainly a way to cope with stress. But as you can see, if you are rationalizing at your own expense, it can really leave you feeling unfulfilled and maybe even full of regret. And when rationalization has become a way of life, change, even the thought of change, can be very scary. And so complacency sets in. So really, and it's fear that is driving it all. And fear is hiding behind rationalization. And these feelings, they only grow stronger when we factor in a major life change that happens outside of our control, such as when the kids leave home, or loss of job, death, divorce, and illness, retirement. It can feel as if there's been a loss of identity, and you're left not only feeling unfulfilled, but now disoriented. So those are all the disadvantages of being a rationalizer. But there are definite advantages. So from this perspective, there is an acceptance of the way things are, and a level of peace that comes from the wisdom of knowing that certain things are beyond our control. And when we can accept this, we stop trying to change them. It truly is what it is. So my friend that day, well, she was connected to her wisdom, her higher self. And in that moment, she knew to accept the situation as something she could not change. And that is why she chose to walk away. It was not simply that she chose the higher road. Once she realized this was her wisdom speaking to her, she was able to release the anxiety she had about the situation. And the lesson to teach her children became clear to her. When we are connected to our wisdom, the actions of others are put into perspective. And it is from that vantage point when all things become possible. So the Serenity Prayer, which I'm sure you are familiar with, sums this up beautifully. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So this is the difference between being connected to wisdom or not. And when we live with wisdom, complacency is no longer an option. Think of what you could accomplish if you never settled for less than. You know, we're at a very decisive point in our history. We certainly can't go back to the way things were. But will we make the conscious choices to no longer tolerate the things that do not serve us? And those choices start with us, with each of us. When we, you and me, make conscious choices, we live with intention. And when those choices align with who we are as human beings, we lead with integrity. So recognizing those things that you are tolerating is the first step to living at your highest potential. And I took that step myself a few years ago, and I never looked back. I will tell you, the only regret, if there is one, was that I waited too long to get support. So if you know that now is your time and you don't know where to start, then good news, you've come to the right place. I've supported dozens of clients, courageous women just like you, who are feeling weary, overwhelmed, underwhelmed, confused, and disillusioned, to get them on their way to creating their new beginning. And listen, if you aren't sure what that looks like, well, neither did I. The good news is, through our work together, you will discover it. So it all starts with you. You can either message me here or go to the Contact Me page on my website, MarionMarinoCoaching.com. You'll find a really simple form there. Just put your contact information, and I will be in touch to arrange a relaxed conversation. So, I want to thank you all for being here today. I hope you found this helpful. I want you to enjoy your Friday. It's a beautiful day here in New York. And until next time, live with intention, lead with integrity, and learn with inspiration. Bye-bye now. Have a great weekend.